From Chrysler Arena to courts around the world, they wore the maize and blue, and now they're bringing you the game, inside and out. Hale Media presents Nolan and Hobbs, the Women's Hoop Home Court podcast, hosted by Maddie Nolan and Jordan Hobbs.
Hey everyone, and welcome back again, 2 times in 1 week. Lucky you guys, the Nolan and Hobbs show with your host, Maddie Nolan, my co-host, Jordan Hobbs.
Today we're going to give a little review of the Minnesota game, a dub by Michigan by 10 points. So excited to break that down. And then, little special surprise, we are going to take you guys through what would look like a scouting report for the next 2 games. The Wolverines face Penn State and Wisconsin this week. So get excited for a little bit of a scouting report today.
All right, so as Jordan said, Wolverines get a big win, a good comeback win after the loss to Washington against Minnesota. They won by 10 points at Chrysler. Definitely a hard-fought game, as Jordan and I kind of thought it would be. Minnesota's a great team. Jay, takeaways from the game.
I think the first thing is just the Wolverines defense. I mean, going into that game, both teams are very defensive minded, so we kind of knew that that's where the game was going to take us. But the ability of the Wolverines to turn over Minnesota, we mentioned in our last podcast that Minnesota only averages about 9 turnovers a game. They had 17. Their first 3 possessions of the game were turnovers. They didn't get a shot off in those first 3 possessions. So just Michigan set the tone really early. They were pressuring the ball, making everything really hard for Minnesota. So I loved to see that. But overall, Minnesota's a really good team. I think that was another takeaway. We had mentioned it, but they had played Maryland, and you don't know if that's a fluke and it's a home game for them, but to go on the road at Chrysler and have a really strong showing, I think they could peak into the top 25 by the end of season.
I completely agree. We talked about how they kind of have that core group that's been together for a little while. They play well together. Braun is coming back from an injury last year, so still kind of figuring, I think, out a little bit how she fits into the system. She had a great game, 14 points. But I think as the season continues to go on, they're just going to gel even better each and every game. Takeaway for Michigan, still not shooting super great from 3 as they were like the last 2 games. We've been in a slump a little bit. I was hoping at Chrysler, you can get up a little bit, but 4 for 19 from 3. Positive, though, they did shoot 69% from free throw, making 18 of 26 this game. Big improvement from the Oregon game and from what they'd been shooting in the previous games of the season as well.
I agree completely. They are in a bit of a shooting slump, but shoot or shoot, they're going to get out of it. You know better than anyone. You're one of the greatest shooters that has played this game, so you've gone through your own slumps, as have I. Oh, please stop. But no, I also...
That was very complimentary, Jordan.
You are. You're really good. Like, come on. Anyway.
Oh, wow, thank you.
Also want to point out Olivia Olson, just a monster game. She was everywhere. 9 for 16 from the field. I feel like she had a little bit of struggles on the West Coast trip. So to come back home, get that confidence back. She was making incredibly tough shots. But the third quarter, she just kind of took off, and in the second half alone, she really propelled the Wolverines to victory, and I was just really impressed with her and her composure.
Yeah, especially as a sophomore. I mean, obviously she played in every single game last year, played 30 minutes a game, but sometimes it's hard when you aren't shooting super well, you come off a tough trip like that, but to come back and shoot efficiently, because, I mean, she still had over 10 points in both games on the West Coast trip, but not super efficient like we're used to seeing. So really glad to see her back in what we're used to seeing her do. Oh, Jay, I meant to ask you, someone in the comments of our last video asked our thoughts about the West Coast teams joining the Big Ten. Outside of obviously like money things, like what are your thoughts? I mean, I know we have talked a lot about this, but just for everyone else to hear, like what do you think of that?
As an athlete, I think it's really hard. Like we saw it even last year when Oregon and Washington came to Michigan, came to Chrysler, and they played Michigan State first, and then they come to Chrysler, and it's a week-long trip, and we blew both of those teams out. And granted, we played great those games, But I also think some part of it was because they were super tired. And these teams that are on the West Coast have to take 4 week-long trips. They're missing school, missing class that they have to make up. And the time change, all of it is just really hard to adjust. But we also kind of saw it with Michigan, and we mentioned it in our last podcast. The trip and the travel is really hard on you. And that second game, they just seemed a lot more flat than they have been all season. So I think it really does affect the student athletes. And I definitely have a lot of empathy for the student athletes that are at Washington, Oregon, USC, and UCLA across all sports, because it is no joke to travel. And even like, I think about if you're on an airplane, that dehydrates you. And there's all these studies about how flying is really bad for you. So they're on these flights for 5 hours sometimes. And it could be every other week they're doing these flights. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I think it's tough to be an athlete over there.
I completely agree. Just the thought of having to fly from LA to Newark, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, cross country trip, I think is ridiculous in my opinion that you're having to do. I also was lucky enough to play in the Pac-12 my last year, my 5th year at Colorado, and this might be controversial, I think it was the best conference for location wise. You have 2 LA schools, you have Boulder, you have Utah, you have Seattle, the Oregons are super cool, you have Stanford and Cal, and now they're all split up, which sucks. But you have the Arizonas. Location wise, I think it was probably the coolest conference, and it breaks my heart a little bit that it's gone, but I was very grateful to be able to play in it my last year of college basketball. But yeah, the stress of traveling, cross country, your sleep schedule's off now, which also impacts play. Even if you're there for a week, it's just not conducive for a long season like we have in basketball. So
Yeah. And I think a lot of the money is funneled through football, which it's great. Like, granted, they make so much money and they fund almost every other sport that's on these campuses. However, these football teams only play about 12 games a season. So they're traveling once a week, and then at least half of those games, but even for Power 4 teams, more than half of those games are home. So then you think about basketball teams or softball and baseball who have a lot more games, and that's just a lot more travel for them.
that is our takeaway of the West Coast schools joining the Big Ten or even joining the ACC. They're kind of everywhere now. And also our review on the Minnesota game. Jordan and I are super excited about this next part. We thought it'd be super fun to show you guys a scouting report, not as in depth as we did when we played, but like pretty good. And I had to give Jordan a shout out. She made this little scouting report template that you're gonna see. It's pretty cool. We're excited to share. So we just want to take you guys through what the scouting report is for Penn State and for Wisconsin. So here we have our Penn State scouting report. They play Thursday, January 8th, 6 p.m. at Penn State. You can see here, so like I said, Jordan did this whole little sheet and put all these here, and then I just did the Penn State side. So shout out Jay. But so yeah, you see on the right side here, we have Michigan. There's 3-1 in Big Ten, 12-2 overall. Biggest win so far versus Notre Dame and recently versus Minnesota. On the other side, we have the Penn State Nittany Lions. They are 0-4 in Big Ten play, 7-8 overall. Don't really have any big wins. They lost to Wisconsin recently by 1 point, which is probably one of their better games so far. And then you can see the side by side here of the team stats with my wonderful handwriting, and obviously Jordan's much nicer handwriting. But you see Wolverines are averaging 87.9 points per game, with Penn State averaging 76.1. Rebounding difference here, 38.7 for Penn State versus 43.2 for Michigan. They average the exact same amount of assists, which I thought was super interesting. And then something that we're going to want to keep an eye out on is they're averaging 20 turnovers already before playing Michigan, who we know like to turn people over. So this is honestly a really good stat for Michigan heading in. Jay, what sticks out to you so far, just from going over kind of like the overall teams?
Yeah, I we've kind of mentioned it before that you can't really take anyone lightly in the Big Ten, and this is a team that you could take lightly. They started 0-4. They're at the bottom of the Big Ten, but they can be very explosive. We'll go over their players soon, but they have two very talented players, and it's also really hard to play at State College. I feel like you and me
Oh my
can
gosh.
speak on this. It's very quiet. It's a huge gym.
Yeah.
Bryce Jordan is a huge gym, and it's just like dead silent. So the energy is completely taken out of the gym. And that can create an environment where Michigan could come in and just be kind of flat. So Michigan has to be ready to come into State College and get this win.
I did actually talk to Coach Danielle Roush today. They are playing in the volleyball gym
Oh.
this time, which I texted her back instantly. Better lighting, because for those of you that maybe have never watched a game at Penn State, the lighting, it's like kind of dim. I don't know how to explain
Yeah.
it. Not the best like Chrysler. But just like some things that, we notice as players going on the road. All right, so obviously we have our starters here. Penn State is actually pretty interesting in the fact like they really haven't had a consistent starting five. So I did kind of the five most impactful five like top minutes of their team. And we're starting here first with number 23, McMiller, transferred from Rutgers, is a sophomore, 5'8" guard, super flashy. Her ball handling skills are insane. If you could look up, she's a pretty much kind of like a walking highlight tape to an extent. Had a great freshman year at Rutgers, decided to transfer to Penn State. As you see here, she's averaging 19.1 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, 4.2 assists, shooting 43% on the year. And just these are some things that we would always look at when we were scouting, like taking our own notes. So something when I was looking up her, so she's taking 19 shots a game, with 3.7 of those being threes, although she's only shooting 23% from the 3-point line. She's very much a mid-range girl, can knock down the three, but definitely prefers to get to the basket and get to her spots in the mid-range. Then next we have 44, Merkel, 6'6" center, averaging 18.9, almost 19 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, shooting a nation best 74.7% from the field. Just absolutely insane. I know a lot of people say, well, yeah, she's super tall, but she does her work early. She has great footwork. She has nice touch around the rim. And something else to look out for is she's averaging 3.6 boards per game, offensive rebounds per game, and 4.1 defensive rebounds. I put MBL, which means must block out. And then another thing that we always look at is players generally have a side, a hand that they prefer to go to. Not always, but a lot of people can be one hand or the other dominant. So for post players, especially because they're facing away from the basket, like their shoulders are turned, we say what shoulder and then what hand they'll finish with. So she likes to go a lot of times over her left shoulder and finishing with her right hand, as we'll see on the film here in a second. Next, we have Murray, averaging 10 points a game. 84% of her shots are threes. That was probably like what I used to do too, but that's a lot. I mean, she's shooting mostly threes. Quick release. She's shooting almost 7 threes per game, which I just thought was insane. But she's shooting at 41.3%, which is also insane. Then we have Mendelson, who is also pretty interesting. She's 6'5". She actually plays volleyball for Penn State and played for Nebraska as well. She just recently returned. She's only played in 5 games so far, but has been getting a decent amount of minutes. Super athletic. Is obviously 6'5", really lengthy. And the last time she played basketball, at least according to ESPN, where she has the stats, was at Nebraska in the 22-23 season. So my senior year, for those of you, so like a decent amount of time ago. But look to her to kind of keep figuring out where she fits into the offense, and I think she's going to have a pretty solid season. And then lastly, according to my French teammates, and I'm probably still not going to say it right, her name is Théa Lyon. Like I said, she's a freshman. She's from France. Half of her shots are also threes. I watched the Iowa Penn State game. I was really impressed with her, how she can knock it down when it's open, but she's also running the point for them a lot of times and getting people in their spots. Yeah, you played against a lot of these people last year. What are your thoughts coming in this year? I mean, McMiller, you played against her at Rutgers, not at Penn State, but what have you seen from Penn State this year and from these players in the past?
First thing I want to mention is Taya Cléant didn't speak any English before coming to the States, which I think is crazy that she came into a college system and didn't speak any English. So I just had to give her like a shout out. That's really impressive. I feel like we know that how hard that would be if we came, or well, we did come to France and Italy, and like your teammates and coaches speak less English. So I feel like Maddie's kind of on the reverse side of that. But in regard to the players, I feel like McMiller might have some vengeance against Michigan. She did not score against us when we played them last year when she was at Rutgers. So she might have a little chip on her shoulder from that game. But yeah, she is very flashy, but she also takes some crazy shots. I do think this year she has matured a little bit, and as you can see, she averages 4 assists. So she's been passing the ball a lot more and reading the defense better. And she has a big body down low in Merkel. So it's a little bit easier for her to get those assists. And then, yeah, Merkel, when we played them last year, she was unstoppable. Although she did have to come out of the game a lot because she does get a little bit tired. And I think that could play into this game if Michigan can push the pace. But yeah, she's unstoppable. She's like, yeah, 6'6", and she's a big body. So it's going to be hard for Ashley and Kendall down low to stop that offense. But other than that, I think if Michigan can push the pace and they can take her out of the game.
Completely agree. That was actually one of my keys on Penn State as a whole. Running in transition, we know Michigan likes to play fast. They like to get the ball out. On the other side of that, though, Penn State does a pretty good job. Well, they try to do a good job of slowing down transition offense for a lot of teams by either going in a zone press or picking up full court man to man. Usually they can only do this when they score, though. A couple times you'll see McMiller or Peel or some of the other subs come in and pick up full court after a miss. But as we'll see here in a second against Iowa, it's not always successful. So I think if Ashley can run the floor, she's going to be really successful against Merkel as well. And we talked about Merkel's great. They run a lot of stuff through her for her, whether it's the high-low action, setting cross screens for her to get open, overloading a side and posting her up on the block. A lot of action just to try and get her going. And then just real quick, we got our Michigan team. Obviously, I've made my own little notes about other players. So you have Neil Holloway. You can see her stats here. I mean, Laura General. But a key for her is trying to slow her down in transition, picking her up, which Penn State is going to try and do. So keep an eye out for that. But we know Mia likes to get it out quick, have her eyes up, look up the floor to advance the ball. Her silent, I mean, she does it all, but I just put clutch. We've seen her numerous times this year before halftime of the Minnesota game, hitting that 3. You got to know where she is at all points in time. Then you have Brooke Daniels, scrappy guard, always playing hard. Another NBL must block out. We've seen her throughout the whole season and even last season on the offensive rebound, even though she's one of the smallest kids on the court. Then you have Olivia Olson. I put mid-range queen. She elevates over everyone. She can get to her spots efficiently, as we've seen, and hit some really tough shots. And then we have Ashley. She loves the little hook over her left shoulder with her right hand, is playing great recently and being super efficient. I've been really impressed with her. Now we're just going to watch a little bit of film. Penn State versus Iowa at Iowa. Jordan, I know, is a super hard place to play. Iowa ended up winning this game 99-76. So Penn State can score the ball. And even when Jordan and I played, Iowa and Penn State when they played each other, their possessions per game were high. They both like to get out and run. So whenever you're playing a team like that, you know you're going to have a pretty high scoring game. But obviously, Iowa coming out on top with 99. But just some things to look for. We're going to watch individual players looking what they like to do. Just showing a couple clips from each, nothing super crazy. And then as a team, the actions that they like to do, and the stuff that we talked about, how Michigan will be able to run on them in transition, especially with Merkel in, and then also how Penn State is going to try to stop that by picking up full court, but isn't always successful. As we see here, setting a back screen for Merkel, great pass, high-low action like we talked about. She likes to finish with that right hand, so a lot of action is going to be for Merkel. And then we have Penn State picking up full court here. But as you can see, using their speed, Iowa was able to break that pretty easily, and I think Holloway will also be able to do that. You have Penn State coming in again, down quickly in transition, finding Cleo in the corner. Like we said, half of her shots are threes, so she's going to knock it down to Zeldin like that. Then when they're on makes, especially, they're able to pick up full court. You see here they're on man-to-man, trying to just slow Iowa down. Because as we know, they like to play quick in transition as well. Now, this is an individual clip of McMiller. You see it have this screen here. Quick handles. You're a step back. She doesn't care. Hand in her face. She's hitting that mid-range. That's what she likes to do. And then here we are again with Penn State picking up full court. So you see here, Iowa off miss and then sprinting the floor. I think Ashley can get a lot of stuff like this, get easy buckets in transition. Merkel's trying to keep up, but she just can't. We have another overload action for the post, but McMiller can break off anytime she wants and shoot it. Like we said, she's shooting 23% from threes. Not a great percentage, but look, she's taking those, and she just broke off from the offense to shoot that one. Now we have Mendelson in the post. Like we said, super long, but just coming back from volleyball season. Really good move here with her left hand, but just not one that she's making right now. I think part of that's just knocking some of the reps off from volleyball season. Now we have Penn State here in transition. Not super fast, but look how quick Murray gets this shot off. It's pure. She's a great shooter. You're going to have to run her off the line. So here we have a blob, a baseline out of bounds. They're setting this little screen for Merkel. You can throw it up to her. Watch how strong this move is through the contact with that right hand. Like we said, she's shooting over 70% from the field, and just really strong move right there. So here we have Penn State. We talked about they like to play a lot through their posts. We have a little screen here. Merkel posting up. Cleo relocating here for the three. Over half her shots are threes. You got to know where she is. And if you're going to help in on the post, you got to get out quicker than that.
That's the nice thing about being a Penn State player is if you're a shooter, you love it because they're all just going to have their attention on Merkel. And it's really nice that they have Murray and Cleo to shoot the ball on those kickouts.
Both of them, they should have really good spacing. They also have, like we said, Merkel in the post, but then you have McMiller on the outside who's really fast, really shifty, so can get in those lanes that those two open up. So here, Penn State coming in the half court. We talked about this with Michigan before, but you have two really good shooters right here. Number 3, like we talked about, Murray, quick release. They're going to set a go-to screen, which means they're not actually going to hit this defender, so she's going to go right here. It can be really confusing for defenders to know what to do because it looks like a screen, so a lot of times they'll hedge or switch out or flash show at least and leaves her open, or they'll both go with her because she's a great shooter. As we'll see here, even she just gets a step behind. Plumont does a great job of taking it right-handed, just from that little go screen action there. And then you have Iowa running in transition again, even off a make, something that Michigan can do as well. We've seen them do all season long. So we talked a lot about Merkel offensively, and she's obviously a big presence defensively as well. She gets a lot of blocks, but look how well Iowa seals here. And Ashley's been doing a great job of this recently, doing her work early, sealing Merkel in, and then just a quick finish here. I think we can look for Ashley to do that Thursday as well. And here's where Penn State can get a little tricky. They're picking up, they're doubling, and then they get an easy defense to offensive score right here. Like we talked about, trying to slow down Michigan. Just keep an eye out for that. They didn't pick up full court man-to-man, but they were in kind of a weird little zone and can run and jump. So Michigan definitely has to be careful with that. So overall, in order for Michigan to be able to win, they need to run the floor in transition. They have to get Merkel outside of the paint, contest her shots, contain McMiller, contain Merkel, make sure you're running Murray off the line. And something I didn't mention, but Iowa did a really great job of, is offensive rebounding. I didn't show any clips of that, but Michigan, we've talked about, has done a really great job recently of doing that. And I think can be a huge point of emphasis for them to win this game.
The next scout that we did is Wisconsin. They play at Chrysler on Sunday. So without further ado, let's get into it. Wisconsin is having one of the best starts in program history. They fired their coach this offseason. They got a new coach, have a ton of transfers. 4 of their starters are from the transfer portal. So it is a completely new Wisconsin team that we are seeing. 3-1 in the Big Ten. Biggest win was a 14-point win against MSU. So they are feeling really good. They had some pretty good wins in the non-conference as well, but the biggest one by far is the MSU game. As for Michigan, also 3-1 in the Big Ten, 12-2 overall, and kind of as Maddie mentioned, same things as before against Penn State. But looking at the team stats, we have 71.9 points per game versus 87.9. Rebounds is about a 7 rebound difference, 14.8 assists to 17.3 turnovers, and then about 16 turnovers to 15. So pretty balanced other than the scoring. So that should make for a pretty fun game.
Completely agree. And thank goodness Michigan does not have to go to Wisconsin to play. I hate playing at Wisconsin. The floor is like the little wood pieces on top of the ice skating rink or the hockey rink. It's cold. There's dead spots. It's also not super crowded, at least in the past. Not one of my favorite places to play for sure. So luckily this game isn't Chrysler. But as Jordan said, Wisconsin's on the rise this year. They're kind of been one of those teams that will sneak a win in against some good teams. But much more consistent this year. So definitely look out. And as we said, Big Ten play, anyone can beat anyone. So Michigan has to come ready to go.
Looking at their starters at the point guard is Ronnie Porter, 5'2" guard. He is tiny but mighty. She actually started at Wisconsin as a walk-on and earned her way into a scholarship spot and clearly has earned the trust of their new coach to be starting. And they pretty much like flushed away last year's team. So for Ronnie to stay just shows the culture and the kind of kid that she is, but just how hard of a worker that she is as well. She is averaging 6 points a game, 4.4 rebounds, but the thing that sticks out to me the most is her 5 assists. She is really looking to delegate on the floor, looking for her post players, looking for her guards. She's really good at penetrating the paint and kicking out or finding the rolls. So Ronnie Porter, honestly, for 5'2", even for just a point guard in general, is a very, very good point guard. Looking at Brianna Ware, 5'7" guard, transfer from Stony Brook, averaging about 7 points per game. She can do a little bit of everything, but I would say she prefers to drive. But looking at Destiny Howell and Kyra Daniels, those are their two main players on Wisconsin. Howell is a 6-foot guard. She's got some height on her, so it'll be a good matchup with either Swords or Olsen against her. Transfer from Howard, half of her shots are threes, and she's shooting a team high 41.4%. So you have to be aware of where she is on the court. But she's also a 3-level scorer. She can drive. She hits the mid-range a little bit, but I would say she prefers either in the paint or from the 3-point line. And then Kyra Daniels, she is a true 3-level scorer. She loves the pull-up jumper. In their game against Penn State, she probably shot 6 pull-up jumpers. She came up in the clutch against Penn State as well. She hit the game-sealing bucket from a pull-up jumper. So you have to be aware of her stopping and shooting that shot. But she also likes to get to the rim. She can also shoot the 3, but her bread and butter is the pull-up. And then you have Gift, and I'm sorry, I'm just not going to try to pronounce the rest of her name because I think it's better for me not to butcher it. 6'3" forward. She is very strong. She's pretty much a true post, but she has a good touch around the rim. Got soft hands. She's going to catch the ball if it's thrown to her. She's a pretty solid forward.
So other than Ronnie Porter staying through coaching changes and starting as a walk-on and now earning her starting role, Wisconsin just posted that since the 2005-2006 season, she ranks 8th in assists and 6th in assists per game. Just insane stats for a walk-on. Shows her perseverance, her dedication, her hard work is paying off, but just super cool story to keep track of.
So that is the overview of the Wisconsin starters. As for Michigan, we know them really well, and Maddie touched on it. Holloway's going to push the pace. Sila loves the 3-point shot, but she can score at all levels. But as Maddie mentioned, she is clutch. Brooke Daniels, a workhorse. She's just going to be gritty. And then Olivia Olsen loves the pull-up jumper. Ashley, just a great addition down low. I think it's going to be a fun game between her and Gift. But overall, for Michigan, I think the key to this game is just sticking with themselves. I didn't really notice any lapses that Wisconsin has when I was watching them, but I think Michigan is overall the better team. Wisconsin hasn't had to play at the pace that Michigan brings this season so far. So if they can turn them over get them running in transition. I think Michigan is going to come out on top. And again, it's a blessing that's at the Chrysler Center because Wisconsin just holds nightmares in my head.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the second episode of the Nolan and Hobbs show this week. We hope you guys enjoyed a little look into what scouting looks like at the Michigan women's basketball level. Make sure you guys tune in to the game Thursday at Penn State, and hopefully you can join at Chrysler Center on Sunday, where they are actually honoring Diane Dietz's jersey.
Diane Dietz laid the foundation of Michigan women's basketball. She was the first 2,000-point scorer, and she held that record for more than 30 years until the next honored jersey, which is coming later in the year. Caitlin Flaherty topped the mark. She still ranks 4th all-time in Michigan scoring with 2,076 points, which is absolutely absurd. She had 11 30-point games and 940 field goals made. So just snaps to her because she deserves to have this jersey honored. I'm super excited for her. Thank you guys again for tuning in, and as always, go Blue.
If you like this kind of content, please like, share, follow, and subscribe. And as always, go Blue.